I'm Jen. I'm the Director of Events and Initiatives, and this is Ariana. You can introduce yourself, Ariana.
Hi, I'm Ariana Peters. I am the president of Attire Tampa Bay.
Yes, so we're super excited to get started with this program. So we thought, given the current situation of everything being virtual and the pandemic and COVID, tons of people are on the market looking for jobs. So we thought it'd be great to start this panel discussion so everybody can get a firsthand look at what's happening in HR and, just answer some questions on what we're all thinking about. So what we're going to do this evening is we're going to start with a 4-person panel. Each of these people will introduce themselves. Alex, he's the one who started this Lunchpool platform, so he can definitely dive into what that's all about. And then each of our other panelists will give you a background to what they're doing and what industry they work in. And then after that panel discussion, we'll open it up to any questions, Q&A. Anybody has questions on, specific things that each of these industries offer. And then we'll also then at the very end pair some of the people up who are interested in doing a mock interview with a person who you can then run through your resume, get critique, and answer any questions that you have. Anything else, Ariana?
Oh, you pretty much covered it all. Let's get started.
All right, great. So again, we'll go ahead and get started with that panel discussion since we're just a few minutes behind, and we'll introduce our first panelist, Alex.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. It's great to be here or be in my office, I guess. I don't usually get to be on the other side on the screen. So again, thanks. My team is excited about this. Probably nobody more than me because it's, it's been, I don't even know, a lot of years since I was on the board of Ad2. Ariana and I met back in the day. I think I might have pushed you to join at one of our recruiting events. So
yeah.
So labor of love, but I'm Alex. I worked in various jobs down in Tampa. Actually, my first the first week in Tampa, I was like, I need to get to know people. I don't know anybody. And somebody recommended Ad2, and they were like, do you want to be on our board? I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. So if you're in Ad2 and you're new, or if you're experienced, then keep it up because it's a great organization. So anyway, this is Lunchpool. I started this company 2018. We had no money for a long time. Nobody was interested. And then apparently in COVID, you need ways to connect virtually, and a lot of the options are not that great. So this is a way that you can move around from table to table. As you probably saw earlier, you could bounce around. This floor plan has 2-seat tables and then the tech support. So it's a good way to interview like we will later. For now, we're in this presentation mode. So that's just a little bit about me. My background is in conversion optimization, which is a really nerdy way to say growth marketing. I worked for Verizon Wireless on their website campaigns, Expedia, Bose, a lot of big brands before getting into data and analytics, where I worked at Ashley Furniture. So kind of the dorky side of marketing and advertising. But I love hanging around creatives and I love working with creatives. And in my past life, I was a designer. So designer turned data nerd, turned weirdo CEO of a video conferencing company. But I'm happy to give some of my advice. One of my passions in life is mentoring. And also, I used to be, when I was in the market, really good at getting jobs. So I can give you some good tips on resumes and LinkedIn and all those things. But I'll quit talking. I know we're over time, so I'll leave it open to the next panelist. And I think next we have Chris.
Hey, everybody. So great to be here. I am Chris Mormon, and I am the president at a marketing agency called Markentum, which is fairly new. We're about coming up on 3 years this January, and we are an agency focused specifically on senior living. So COVID has been a wild year in terms of helping our clients, helping our partners navigate through all of that stuff, and just working hard on their behalf. In terms of ad fed stuff, I am the president of the AAF chapter here in Daytona Beach. And so I bring you greetings from the non-lake side of Florida. But love the Tampa area. Love what you guys are doing over there. So excited to cross-pollinate and connect with you guys. And I have a different nerdy background than Alex. I originally went to school for aerospace engineering, but I didn't like cubicles so much. And so then I decided to get into understanding people. And I studied theology and philosophy for a while, which then somehow transitioned into being around a lot of creatives in the nonprofit world and doing some pretty cool stuff, traveling internationally, helping to tell people stories, which then turned into me being approached to help with the agency that I'm at now. So it's kind of been a weird hop, skip, and a jump to get into the digital marketing that I'm doing now, but excited to be here tonight, and also would love to talk to you about how you can share your story in a way that makes sense, and it doesn't always have to be a clear, straight path forward. There's lots of opportunity to branch out, try new things, do creative things, and take steps of courage. So super excited to be here tonight with you all.
Jermaine Weathersby. I am HR executive at Landsea Property. I'm working with two screens here and there, so if you ever see me look back and forth, I'm not paying attention. It's just I have two screens in front of me, which is always a plus. I'm down in South Florida. Love the Tampa area. Worked quite a bit in Tampa area recently with the company BG Multifamily. But I am currently and have been hiring quite a few people. And this pandemic changed a lot. But even though the pandemic changed a lot, there are still plenty of things that everyone has mentioned before me, things that we have noticed, things that we have done in our past, that we can still present to other people to help them not only get hired, but some of the best practices that I see, because I have to host a few, pretty much like 35 to 40 interviews a week on top of hiring, and then the practice of putting those who are not from the industry that I'm into, and finding some of the right candidates and what I'm looking for technically, to find these right candidates, put them in the right positions, and then help train them. So therefore the future of our businesses are a lot better. So I'm super deep into the education side of it. Not going to get into my nerdy background because I have a nerdy background like everyone else. So that's always a plus. But yeah, I'm super excited for this. Great to see everyone. Hopefully everyone is still smiling. I see a lot of things happening over in the chat section, which is always fun. I was just about to comment. I had just logged on to someone else's LinkedIn when they put it up there. I think that's a great idea. If you could throw your LinkedIns on there, I would love to connect with some of you guys. If I don't have a chance to talk with every single person through their LinkedIn, through the chat. But other than that, yeah, I'm open book. I'll soon talk to all of you.
Okay, I will take it. I'm on stage. So I am Jeffrey Nevins. I am the controller at Spark Branding House here in Tampa, Florida. And I'm here. My background is all on the finance accounting side. I used to work at a CPA firm, then produced financial statements, did investor calls for a publicly traded insurance company. And now I'm in the marketing branding industry, helping leaders, partners, owners navigate this pandemic and utilize any kind of asset management we can to leverage our position to help out our clients and whatnot. So I'm here as a complete resource for any questions anybody has, and same thing, I'm an open book, so look forward to chatting with everybody and giving whatever guidance I can.
It up to all of our panelists on stage, and then we'll be running through some preset questions that we hope that we can hear some insight from each of you.
Sorry, I was muted because my daughter is screaming, and I feel like this happens in at least every other Zoom call or panel these days, or a dog is barking, the new normal here. So they had actually sent over some questions, and so I can kind of lead the discussion on that and ask those. So we have what looks like about, I can't do math here, until 7:25 to answer some questions. But again, our Lunchpool claim to fame or our secret sauce is that we hate dull, lifeless, one-to-many presentations. So definitely engage, which you guys already are, in the chat. Let us know your questions. I believe at the end we may have time for Q&A. So definitely ask your questions in the Q&A tab, and we'll field those as well. So thank you guys for your time tonight and for joining us. I am going to start off with the questions. So these were sent in to the Add To team. And I'll just kind of get it started, and you guys can go around and answer if that works. So when hiring, would you say you're more lenient to employment gaps in the age of COVID? It's a good question. So Chris, do you want to kind of start there?
I mean, I would say that it's something that I'm for sure willing to explore in terms of conversation. I don't think that it would be something that would, necessitate me overlooking anyone based on where we're at. It's been a tough year, and I think that, people are getting creative, and there's, in terms of our team, I know that we've had to make some tough calls. We've, kind of talked about, okay, how can we reposition some team members and some other parts of our team. So I don't think that that's a deal breaker for us. That's kind of my attitude about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think some of the prior experience and what you're doing during this time takes greater consideration when evaluating that candidate. But absolutely, we know these are unusual circumstances, and so unusual circumstances dictate unusual responses to this, and having to adapt and be flexible in what a candidate's background that you normally would expect to see versus what it currently is. So yeah, absolutely, we're more lenient to those gaps, just more aware of what the prior and totality of the candidate's background is.
I'm in the same boat. Just to piggyback on everything I said already, I have to lean more so towards some of the things that you already have established, because there are quite a few certifications that you may have to have when it comes to me hiring somebody. So that's always, if they didn't work for so much amount of time, as long as the certifications haven't expired, as long as some of the licenses haven't expired, then I can definitely take a look, because obviously your credentials were there. You did have the knowledge, and you didn't work for whatever the case may be. So just being open and upfront and having that conversation is super important, but also more so the experience and hearing somebody out is really important. So I try to hear people out, and that's exactly what Christopher had brought out earlier.
Yeah, I think that's awesome all around. And I think that employers are having to wake up to the fact that, there's a lot of things now that weren't true then. We call it BC, the before COVID times. But it's twofold for us. I think that one, you have to be understanding that a bunch of people got laid off during, the initial chaos that happened. But for me, I may be different than other hiring managers out there, but I almost encourage, one of our tenets is work-life balance, and sometimes people need a little bit of a break. So I think that, there's something to be said for just running through and going from job to job to job up the ladder, so to speak. But as long as someone can, to Jermaine's point, eloquently explain what they were doing, I love that. I love to hear I actually had to reevaluate my life, and I went to Spain to go do the El Camino Trail. That's cool. That would probably make me want to hire you. So I think that just as long as you can explain it, and it could be, I couldn't find a job. I started looking and, it was really difficult. So I went back and started doing some personal development. I learned Photoshop. I learned whatever. Like, just be sure that you have an explanation for it. Good question. So the next one is, I've got this list here. Adriana, if you'll add that to the Q&A tab at the end, we'll go over some of those. I think that's the way they want us to do it.
I'm seeing a lot of discussion about a cat cafe. There wasn't actually a cat cafe here in the Daytona Beach area, but I'm not sure that cat cafes are a thing now in a pandemic situation. So.
Yeah, you barely have cafes. So cat cafes, I don't know. Maybe a virtual cat cafe. We can talk about that later.
I did a puppy yoga at a bar a couple of years back, but I can't imagine that would even remotely be permissible.
Kristen says it's a lawless swamp. So I'm in Knoxville now. I missed Florida, but I do not miss the swampiness. So we can go into the next question. And if I'm not ignoring you guys, they just gave me some questions to ask that I guess people had sent in. You're in Knoxville. Awesome. So, but make sure that you put it in the Q&A tab over on the side, and we'll make sure to address all of them.
We didn't know we had like Team Knoxville because my sister actually lives in Knoxville, and Alex and I were talking. I'm headed up to Knoxville for Thanksgiving, so go Knoxville.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, go Knoxville. So we'll just take the questions as they roll in. So Adriana asks, for those looking to venture into a new field where past work experience may not exactly overlap, how can we position ourselves on paper in order to be seen as a contender when applying? So when you're looking to a new venture, and you kind of have a reshift in your direction, how do you make that mesh on paper? And we can kind of go through the same way. Let's mix it up. Jeffrey, do you want to kind of take that one?
Sure. I mean, that's a tough one. Yeah, that's going to be difficult. How do you present it on paper? Maybe any kind of organizations, forums, anything you can mention on there that has given you a head start into that entry into that field or that role. But yeah, that's going to be a tough one if you have zero prior experience. But
I'll jump in on this because I feel like that's kind of in my wheelhouse, jumping from seemingly different industries. And so I think that the skill there is to learn to recognize, some of the, what are the experiences you've had, what are the learning, opportunities, and start to describe, like your experience in terms of skills learned that makes you, a good fit for the team that you're looking to join. I will say too, it's always really beneficial to sit with a mentor in those moments and just ask them, like, how would you describe me, so that you can hear somebody else's take on your skills and experiences, to kind of be a mirror. I know Alex had mentioned that earlier, like in helping people, in mentoring someone. And so it's always great to get like that other perspective outside of just, okay, I've spent X number of years in this position, in this role, in this type of role. So hearing from, somebody who maybe is in that field that you're looking to join, so you can kind of build some community there and then talk to them, like, what are you looking for? And then start to that thought exercise of, okay, what are the things that I've learned over here, and how could they potentially translate into that? So I guess what I'm saying, like, the short answer is do a little bit of research, kind of crowdsource that a little bit outside of that specific maybe job or career. Find some people maybe in that career and crowdsource a little bit and talk to them about where you come from and how could that potentially translate into where you're going.
Just to quickly piggyback, I'll make it really fast. I know the question had brought up, especially on paper, how could you, get your resume in a sense seen? I say complete transparency. I look at hundreds of resumes a week, a month even. So my biggest thing is I'm looking sometimes for keywords, for buzzwords, whether it be property manager, whether it be a certification, whether it be a license, whether it be previous experience, whatever the case may be. Even if you don't have it, and I'm not saying it's going to work out every single time, and unfortunately that's just the reality of it, but being completely transparent, having limited knowledge on whatever the buzzword may be, willing to learn more about whatever the buzzwords may be, willing to learn more about chairs and soda if they're a chair and soda place that sells and you've never done chairs and soda. A little bit of knowledge on property management, but looking to extend my knowledge. As long as it's inside the resume somewhere where you can be honest and open about it, it does have a better chance against seeing, rather than just leaving it off there because you have no experience.
Nick, I do this for a living, guys. I promise. No, I think that's exactly it. And knowing that, like, you're going to put so much time and detail and attention into your resume, and we are not going to look at it. You know, like we're going to look at it, but we're going to look at it briefly, and then we're going to get another, and we're going to look at it. And so, you know, I think it's really important to you know, if you're a copywriter, you're in luck, but you've got a whole network of people that are good at copywriting. So put in those words that catch attention, because, you know, I heard someone at one point in time say that, you know, there was a strategy of like spraying cologne or perfume on your resume. Well, you can't do that digitally. And so I think it's just, again, about crafting that narrative. But I mean, again, I think it depends on the company and the hiring manager, but a variety is okay. You know, as long as it, you know, if you might have to explain in the interview, if you, I'm looking at your resume and we get to an interview and you're like, farmer, Hidden Valley Ranch, and then, you know, advertising, creative or whatever, that's going to be hopefully an interesting story. But I think you can make it mesh. And I think it's a great question though.
I think the cologne or the perfume of today's resume is definitely the design.
Yeah.
Just a little bit about that. Like, it is nice when someone puts some thought into that. That definitely helps to stand out, because I also, you know, like looking at dozens of resumes and something that's, well, you know.
And I guess I would challenge that, but only because I think that there's a time and place for it. And so, like, if you're applying for a design job, yeah, I mean, I think that you should put some design thought into your resume. But also, I saw a comment or a question: how many companies are using AI for resumes? So, like, we're not that fancy yet. You know, we're growing, but I know that a lot of the bigger companies are using what's called an applicant. There's my daughter, an applicant tracking system, and I mean, you know, it may not even get to the hiring manager because it's getting filtered out for not, you know, being keyword intensive or anything enough. So I'll put a link in the comments. That was like my best friend when I was on the job hunt. If you're looking for big companies, jobs with big companies, JobScan was awesome. Like, it literally is reverse engineering the applicant tracking systems, the AI stuff. You put in the job you want, you put up your resume, and then it'll literally tell you, these are the keywords you need to put in your resume. And, you know, with great power is great responsibility. What I would do is figure out ways to finesse those words into my experience. If I had it, you know, you don't want to just stuff them in there. But there are ways that you can kind of, you know, get by in a system that is roboticized. So definitely use that resource. Let's see. So next question is, I guess, add two folks. Do you want me to go off the list, or do you want me to? I guess I'll continue down the list so that we can knock those out, and then the Q&A will get going as well. So the next one I have is, how can young professionals looking to advance in the advertising industry network in the age of COVID? So I'll let you guys take that. I might just shut up because I talk a lot. Who wants to take that one? Jermaine,
well, I think it's my turn to start first, I guess. So I would definitely say things like this are super important. Networking is going to be extremely different in this era, different than it's ever been probably since, the internet was around because we're not meeting so much face to face. But we have a lot of tools in which we can still connect with people. So doing a little bit of, and we mentioned this word a lot, research, a little bit of homework. It doesn't require, my dogs are going crazy. That's always a plus. So it does require a little bit of work on your end, but what you're going to do is check the LinkedIn, figure out if you can join some of these events where they host a lot of times in areas, free events where you can join on boards or listen in with other people who may have a good chance of networking, and also reaching out to people, sending an actual message that's not a copy and paste message saying, oh, here's a long list of things that I know. And someone's LinkedIn really goes a long way, because a lot of times when I get a message in LinkedIn, if I can tell it's been auto-generated, I don't read it. But a lot of times in LinkedIn, if someone reaches out to me personally and they'll tell me a story, tell me something funny, say where they met me from, or how they would like to know me, or why they're trying to connect with me, I respond to those 99% of the time if I see it.
Yeah, and I would piggyback on that. Join as many virtual events as you can, freelance, gain experience in this new software, become a go-to resource, or as you do that, you'll be networked with other professionals there, and you'll get recommendations into this new world. So just take advantage of whatever opportunities this new environment presents, and just go all in on it. But and then you obviously have your LinkedIn and different social networks as well. But if you throw as many sticks into the fire and see what lights up, don't limit yourself at all. Don't overthink it. Just go for it.
Yeah, I'll jump in before Chris, so I can be brief. But I would say, obviously use Lunchpool as often as possible whenever you see an event. But really, I think that technology is your friend right now. You're cooped up in your house, and we've been doing research on software like this that I call empathy tech, and it's like connective tech. It's tech that lets you recreate, add to experiences and things like that. And they're popping up all over the place. So look for hop-in events, look for Lunchpool events, look for things that aren't just Zooms, because if you're sitting in a Zoom call, you can learn, but it's really hard to interact via the chat. But you'll see here, you see somebody that has a cool chat, you hit the back button, you message them. Next thing you know, you're connected on LinkedIn. And so also to piggyback on Jermaine's comment, connect with people on LinkedIn. I've talked to, when I started my startup, you have to be audacious sometimes in getting jobs and in starting new companies. So like someone was like, oh, have you read that book, Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi? And I was like, no. So I went and got it. It was an amazing book. And I reached out to him on LinkedIn. Next thing you know, his assistant is setting up a meeting with him, and I'm talking on the phone with him. He's interested in being in our advisory board. So like, it's literally, the internet has made people just at arm's reach. And you have to craft your approach so that they know that you're not trying to sell them something, and that they know that it's going to be worth their time to talk to you. And sometimes that's just, hey, I need mentorship. I was really impressed with your profile or your career from what I read. Can we connect? And so I think that, but there's nothing worse than getting the cold, like just boom, add to LinkedIn. It's like, you're making me do work. I have to go look and see, is this a Amway salesperson or whatever. So Chris, I'd love to hear your thoughts too, though.
Many thoughts on Amway. This is my first time using Lunchpool, so the plug is fire. I think that I kind of approach it in like 3 buckets. Like, I think that it's good to find like mentors, like who are the people that I'm looking up to. So trying to connect with a group that has some of those people. I think there's also just community in general. Like, I think of AdFed in that world. That's part of the reason why I'm here, because it's always, I'm getting exposed to people that are at all like different levels of their journey. So it's cool to be in that tension of, just getting started or further down the road, or, really experienced. And that's awesome. And then also like the third bucket for me is like peers. How am I connecting with some of my peers? And so that's been neat during COVID. To the point of the book. I'm in a book club now that meets on a monthly basis, and just give us an opportunity to like talk through stuff. So maybe something where you're going, man, I'm looking for something that isn't out there, and you just start it, right? Like you just use all of these different tools, whether it's Zoom or Lunchpool or whatever, and you say like, hey, I can get this group of people together and then see where it goes. So that happened for me with other like advertisers that were talking about how do we help senior living? How do we help the senior living industry get through this time period? And so we just started brainstorming and meeting as a peer group and giving it that opportunity to like ebb and flow. We started with like a meeting every single week, and now we meet once a month. And so that's my long speech about networking in this time.
Last thing I'll say about that is it's a muscle. You got to keep doing it, and you got to put yourself out there. Like, I'm pretty outgoing. I wasn't always, like my first Ad 2 meeting, I was terrified to talk to people. The first time I had to get on stage at an Ad 2 event, I thought I was going to throw up, but the more you do it, we're all basically driven by fight or flight. And the more that you do it, the less weird it gets. Your brain is like, okay, well, we didn't die those last 60 times. Probably not going to die this time or make a fool out of ourselves. And if you do, you've done it before, it's okay. So just, don't take yourself too seriously would be my piece of advice, and just get out there. All right, so let's see the next question here. You guys also in the Q&A tab, you can vote those questions up. So you can add your own and you can vote them up. So I'll just kind of take it from the top, I guess, on that. Someone asks, interesting question. What's your opinion about doing free work, free spec job work for job interviews? That's a good one. So I guess should people, if you want to really stand out, should you do free work to try to get the job?
Yeah, I don't think it can hurt. I think if you can afford to, both with your time and your financial resources, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that's a way to grab the attention of an employer or soon to be, and let them kind of test you out to see if they want to bring you on board. But that's a delicate situation, and I mean, the final kind of guidance would be, it's all dictated by what you can afford to do with your time and financial resources. That's a lot to ask, and no employer would expect that. But it's a great offer and a great way to get your name to the top of the list, or get your name seen somehow. So yeah, if you can, go for it.
Jumping right on along, I think everything he said is completely true. But I also think it's industry specific, because there's quite a few industries that you couldn't do spec work for, unfortunately, for whatever the case may be. And that's just how it is. So knowing a little bit about, even if you may not have a job currently, what your worth and what your value is, never forget it. That's always important. But if they're allowing it, ask why, or has anyone else ever tried it? But if it's something that you're offering up front, ask. It wouldn't be bad to ask, is this something that you're interested in? Because again, that open conversation, I think, is super, super important. So I've never been able to allow someone to do it in my industry or any of the industries that I've worked for before, but I have seen it done before. So it's not like it's impossible. I just think it's industry specific.
Yeah, and I would just say be careful of companies that ask you to do that, because my first job in Tampa was a company that was an events company, and they're like, okay, well, your first project is you need to go through this, marketing plan for an event. And like I did it, and then I got the job, and I was like, they used that, if I wouldn't have gotten the job, I would have just been basically working for free. So, it's one thing to take the initiative and do it to impress the hiring manager, but don't get taken advantage of. And, if you came to, like, our social media is terrible right now because we've been so busy that we haven't had a chance to touch it. I just finally told one of my employees, I was like, okay, you've been asking if you can revamp it. Awesome. But if someone had come and applied and been like, oh, I'd love to work for you. Also, I made this new banner for your Facebook page that just to kind of give you an idea of my skills, I would be like, hired, you're in, let's do this. So if it was good, I mean, if it sucked, then I don't know. But I know add 2 people don't do crappy work. So how about you, Chris?
I think my only additional thought is just the encouragement of continuing to refine your craft. You know, I don't think that ever hurts. So, you know, if you're finding yourself in a moment where you're, you know, looking for a career change, hopefully you're doing some work that, you know, is related. And so I would love to see that, you know. I don't think it necessarily has to do specifically with, you know, the job, but I think just in general, like, what are you doing to advance? What are you doing to work on that craft? That's my two cents to that.
Yeah, great thoughts. So I'm going to kind of move along. I know we have a bunch of questions to get through, so we'll power right through. This next question from Ad 2 is, do you have any tips on improving or maintaining a healthy work-life balance when working from home? It's so, and add to that, it's so easy to end up working through the night because your work computer is with you always. So yeah, that's a great question. Who wants to start off on that one?
I can go. Yeah, you just have to have some, you know, you have to be disciplined. Don't, you know, set a schedule just like you would in a pre-pandemic, pre-COVID lifestyle. Don't accept meetings outside of normal business hours unless, you know, it's an outlier and there's an urgent need. But it's up to you to kind of control that. The more we're available, the more an employer and coworkers are going to reach out to you. So you have to kind of be disciplined and control your schedule and just be firm. You know, schedule time, block off time on your calendar so people can see it. Take your normal breaks, take a full lunch. Don't start scheduling additional meetings because you're eating at home and you're available. It's really just up to you to be disciplined and treat it just like you were pre-pandemic.
Yeah, and I'll just say I totally agree. I think that if there's anything that I've agreed with this whole evening, it's what Jeffrey just said. Take a lunch break, because, and not just a lunch break, take breaks. You know, like it's really easy to get caught up in it. And, you know, my office is my guest room. And so it's always there. The computer screen is always glowing out of the door like, oh, I just need to go do those few more emails or whatever. But the work is always going to be there, and you can't risk your personal health or mental or physical to just do more work that's never going to go away. Jermaine, Chris, did you guys have any?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys in the chat have any pro tips for all of us, share them, because mental wellness and these kinds of things, that I think we're all working on it, right? Like, this is something that we're all in the middle of figuring out. And I think improving work-life balance is the journey we're all on, regardless of COVID. So I know that I copied a little link. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but I follow the Improvement Pill YouTube channel. It's pretty fun. And one of my favorite videos that's on there is about the 1% rule. I'm sure you guys have heard of this, but not trying to make big sweeping changes, but just doing little micro steps to improve. So don't beat up on yourself. If it's a little tiny thing, you're like, hey, I'm going to spend 5 minutes doing this. I'm going to set an alarm for 5 minutes just to stand up, stretch, kind of move around. I don't know, something small that you don't have to feel like, oh my God, I didn't climb that mountain today. I'm a terrible person. It's pretty easy to beat up on ourselves. So I would just encourage you to find small, meaningful things to do.
I would definitely say, because as you just mentioned, we're all still trying to figure this out currently. One of the good things is you always have the ability to figure out what works out for you, because what works for you may not work for someone else. So it's actually something that I found to be enjoyable, to where I had to figure out what was going to be my breakaway. Before, I used to listen to podcasts when I drove all the time. I was in outside sales for a while. I used to listen to podcasts all the time when I was in my car. And then once that ended, I was like, man, how could I ever listen to my podcast? Where am I going to find the day-to-day? And then when I'm working from home now, it's not like I can listen to a podcast. I'll get distracted. So I had to figure out something else. And everyone's different. So it may be book. It may be figuring out how you can, help your mind calm down after a long day. Whatever the case may be, I would say not only work at it, but there's going to be plenty of things that you can look up, plenty of things you can read, plenty of things that you can help find motivation for, because a lot of times, because you're home, sometimes it's hard to get motivated. So there's two sides to this always, but take enjoyment in finding that balance, because that's where you can really learn a lot more about yourself to help yourself become a better worker. Because I know some of the things that I'm implementing now, I'm going to take in the future once, and, hopefully when the pandemic's over, if it ever ends, once it's over, to take in the future with me. So that's always a plus.
That's a great point. And to Chris's point, like, please give us tips, because I need. I was advocating for it. Like, I was like, everybody needs to slow down and work-life balance and all this stuff. That was when we were pre-revenue. The year that nobody wanted to do anything, to have anything to do with Lunchpool, and I wasn't doing anything. I was just twiddling my thumbs. We started getting 100 leads a day, wanting to know, like, how can you do our virtual event, and then referrals, and I literally lost 30 pounds because I was not eating lunch. I was just not stopping. And, I had to stop and say, okay, you hypocrite. You were telling people when you had nothing to do, you were telling people that they needed to chill out. And now, you're not doing that. So you got to slow down. And again, drawing it back to ad 2, if it's anything like it was when I was in ad 2 or ad fed, you guys are only high achievers, and high achievers, we thrive in crisis situations. This is a never-ending crisis situation, so definitely take a break. The next question is let's see. Let me go back to the Q&A tab. How prepared do you think the advertising agency is for a possible second national lockdown in terms of client retention, revenue, employee security, or anything else? So I guess that's the advertising agency as like a general, advertising agencies. So how prepared do you think everything is, guys?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I saw someone. No. I was going to say, I'd hate to keep copping out for this and say it's industry specific, but I don't know how you can judge in a sense, because I can look at a industry with like the movie industry, where I think they are billions and billions of dollars, but guess how many movie ads they're running right now? 0.000. It is what it is. So you would hope that people plan for it. It's a good question to ask when you're talking to people. How do you guys plan on, or what did you guys do once the pandemic happened? It's a good question, because I've been asked that question and I do have an answer for it. So I think it's a good question when you're even talking to employers. But who knows? This is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think the only solid answer I have is better prepared than we were pre-COVID. So that's about it. I mean, data sets have been formed. We've analyzed, how this affected our current clients, what clients to go after. I mean, with the downturn of like hospitality clients, tech clients soared and couldn't spend enough. And so, you just have to adapt to any change that happens. Once again, it's an opportunity or a threat, depending how you look at it. But we have some data sets that show us what the economy did, what different industries and different sectors did. We, reformatted our balance sheets and our asset management, ratios to be extremely leveraged for clients. And so we're in a better position. What does that mean? Not much, but everybody's figuring this out. There's no right or wrong answer right now.
And we could kind of go to the next question, Chris. I know you probably have some thoughts, but maybe we'll power through because we're the talkers. And so we can get through these questions. What I can do is I'll ask it, and if you have something to say, jump in, and then we'll kind of do a power round. How's that sound? Awesome. All right. So next question is, what are your opinions on personal websites or personal social media? When you receive a resume you like, is that your next step in the review process? So now I scared everybody. How about Jeffrey? Do you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, you want to be who you are. You don't need to hide anything. So be who you are and be confident in that. Obviously, if you have some extreme images or videos on there, evaluate that at your own discretion and balance what it means to you personally versus, how you can speak to it if it gets brought up. But, it's pretty common sense to me. Don't hide who you are, be who you are. You want to have the best representation, but use a little common sense. You don't want to have your keg stand videos up there, or you might, I don't know, but just use common sense.
If they're well produced and you're looking for a videography job, then maybe, who knows?
Barstool? I mean, what are we talking about?
Chris, did you have any thoughts on that one? Because I feel like you might have some interesting insights on that.
I mean, I think we're in a place where, being authentic is pretty important. And I also know that, I'll check LinkedIn, but I'm not going to, I don't think we're in the same place where we were, trying to stop people down on all their social media platforms. Like, one, there's just too many, and that gets wild, and it's, that seems like a shell game. So I think that, being sensitive, being aware is important, but I would just say that that's not something that I'm doing a deep dive into personal social media. So
yeah, exactly. I would say be careful about political things because, if you vibe politically with me, cool, that might help you, but probably I'm going to question your judgment for, depending on the conversations you're having. But I do, for personal social media, I think LinkedIn has become very personal. So that's my immediate go-to is I get a resume. I'm like, oh, this person sounds cool. I'll go to LinkedIn. And so if you don't have a LinkedIn, or if you don't have a presence on LinkedIn, I would say start there. So good question. The next one is, are you willing to overlook or be understanding of having an employee who was arrested during a peaceful political protest?
It happened down here quite a bit in the Miami area. We had some people take off on the days where they were actually walking streets, and it actually happened. We put them back out to work the next day when they were out. So personally, no, I didn't have any problems with it. My employers didn't have any problems with it. They kept working. But the one thing is, because we do background checks, and this will be done for future reference, when we see a background check, it doesn't go into list everything word for word, what you did, who said what. So we can't be judge and juror. We're going to literally read what's on the background check. And we look for a specific certain amount of things that we aren't hiring for. We can't hire you if you've done, but that's not one of them.
I think keep protesting. We need that right now. So they ask, is anyone hiring right now? Could I apply at your company today? We're looking for interns right now, and then we will be looking for more paid roles. So I think mock interview with us, and maybe it'll turn into a real interview. I think all of us probably.
Yeah, Spark actually is hiring quite a bit. We have social content managers. We have brand managers, so account executive types. We have a couple of positions in a studios department, so editors, shooters, as well as what we call a line producer. So those are, off the top of my head, a couple positions we have here at Spark.
Nice. So yeah, let us know, and we'll maybe all of us can put in the chat what we're looking for as well. And I know we have a few, add 2 folks. Let me know if you want to keep going through this or if you want to go to the mock interviews. While you do that, I'll ask the next one, which is, what is acceptable attire and behavior during a virtual meeting? Some companies have leniency with this now since that everyone's at home, but how important is it to stay in professional attire? Interesting. Anybody have thoughts on that? Especially interesting in the advertising realm, I think.
I mean, I think that's so like a context thing, depending on who you're with. I think it could be all over the place. I mean, I think that there's comfort levels in some places that aren't going to be in other places. I think it also depends on like what kind of virtual meeting. This week I did virtual meetings in t-shirts, and also I did put a jacket on because I was speaking to an investor group. So I'm not, being aware of your audience, right? Like, who are you with and reading the room?
Yeah, I think that, if it's my team, you could be wearing a trash bag. I don't really care as long as we're doing good work. But, we've done some like really interesting events. So we did a virtual gala and everybody's in, tuxedos and stuff like that as attendees. And so, my team, if they're wearing, if they're wearing trash bags to that, I'm going to get in trouble with our clients, and they may have a few words from me. So, just like you said, read the room. All right. So, someone asked, is an unpaid internship different from spec work? We could probably go into that for a long while. But I would say, any unpaid work is probably spec work kind of. Unpaid internships, just make sure that you're benefiting more than the company is the way it's supposed to work. And then last question I have in the chat or in the Q&A is, how much time on average do you spend looking at a resume cover letter? Are there any words or phrases that are automatic disqualifications?
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, sorry, and I'll put it up too. So basically, how much time on average do you spend looking at a resume or cover letter? And then they added to that, are there any phrases or words, is there anything you see that just says, nope, throw it in the trash?
I think Jermaine probably is the best to speak this on my behalf. It depends how interesting the resume is, but it really is, 3 to 5 minutes looking at it, depending on if something catches my eye. Nothing that would stand out where I would toss it, more along the lines of something that's an attractive keyword to the position that I would want to go more in depth on. But Jermaine, I feel like, would be a great resource.
I'm trying to get better at looking at every single resume because sometimes some people just don't know how to put a good resume together, and that happens. Some of the best candidates I've ever hired had a really bad resume, unfortunately. But you just have to dig through it. But the only thing I've ever thrown away immediately was a resume in which they told me they're not willing to blank 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 blank. And I understood why they had it there because, they're not willing to learn something. But as I'm reading a resume and trying to learn more about you, to learn about what you don't want to do or not like, I said, well, obviously we're not going to connect because I'm looking for someone who's willing to learn, who I wasn't even going to ask them that. But now I know for a fact they're not looking to learn something. So it was something that I threw away immediately. If you're telling someone what you're not looking to do, don't do that.
Yeah, try not to put negatives in your resumes. And what I always tell people is, especially advertisers and marketers, like, think about what you're doing in your craft, apply that to your job hunt. Like the cover letter, or the email reach out, purpose is to get them to look at your resume. You don't want to give everything in your resume because you want to get the interview. So just build that intrigue and get to that next step. So I think we're getting booted off the stage.
No, you guys are doing great. Thanks again to each of you for all of your commentary. But to stay on track with time, I did message every participant. So if you take a look at your personal, you'll see who you'll be paired with during the mock interview. So after we leave the presentation mode, you'll then be able to join your tabletop to then be interviewed. So if you send us away, Alex, we'll start with that piece.
All righty. We'll see you guys, and thanks for listening to us, and we'll see you in the tables.